Hi, Zizaran here. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Awakener Orb, the Maven Orb, and the Conqueror Exalted Orbs and how to use them. So, recently we've been getting more and more specialized currency like the Awakener Orb, the Maven Orb, etc. And I want to explain a little bit about how they work. So, let's look at the Awakener Orb. What it does, it destroys an item and you apply its influence to another item of the same class. However, the second item is reforged as a rare item with both influence types and new modifiers. Now, what's also important to note here, it's not just about combining, for example, Shaper and Crusader, you also get to guarantee up to 2 mods. So how does this work? Let's look at this chest, right? This one has Explosion and then has 3 other shitty mods. And more importantly, the 3 other shitty mods, none of them are influence mods. These are all mods that can normally roll on a Widow Silk Robe. Let's look at this one. This one has Item Rarity, and then it has a few other shit mods as well. 3 ones. And all of these are, again, mods that can normally roll on an item. If I now did the Awakener Orb on my Widow Silk Robe and then the Cardinal Armor, it will destroy the Widow Silk Robe and it'll make a new Cardinal Armor and it'll be guaranteed to have Item Rarity and Explosion, and then every other mod will be rerolled. Now, obviously, this is pretty okay to fix now because of Harvest. It's important to know that you are guaranteed those 2 mods and then everything else is rerolled. So it's like a Chaos Orb, on the rest of the mod. You could be lucky and get really, really good influence mods, or you could be unlucky and end up with 13 mana. You want to make sure that you don't have multiple influence mods because that'll screw it and you will probably end up with the worst one. The Awakener Orb also works on elevated mods, which are from the new Maven Orb, which we'll talk about next. Sometimes if you get a really, really, maybe it isn't what you desired at all, you got the 2 guaranteed mods but everything else is shit, then you could re-roll the item and now it has both of the influences on them. But the Awakened Orb is insanely strong for different, very, very many things. Like, for example, getting a shield with both 2% max rest and 15% restoration is very, very difficult, but with an Awakened Orb it's, very easy. You just need to roll 1 shield with max rest and another shield with 15% restoration. Boom, slap them all together and now you got a really nice shield. For making explosion chests as well, it can be really, really good. It can be good for swapping things to 6 things, like in this case. Now, an important thing with this, let's say that this has explosion right now, but let's say that this is item level 80 Cardinal Armor. Then wouldn't work because you need item level 85 for the explosion. You would lose it, and I bet that's happened to quite a lot of people. But item level is important in Path of Exile, so it will be using this would all stay the same, like the item level, it'll be Shaper, Crusader, and 6th, but do keep that in mind. So let's talk about the Maven Orb. It drops off the Maven and it's introduced in this league, and it only works on body armor, boots, gloves, and helmet, so only your armor pieces. And what it does is it'll only work on a armor that has 2 mods. It needs to have 2 influence mods on it. It wouldn't work on either of these, but let's say, and this is a very common way to do it, let's say that this chest had enemies you kill explode, and it had the physical damage taken as lightning. I could use the Maven Orb on this, and it will choose 1 to keep, 1 to destroy, and the one it keeps will be empowered, so it would go up to 5% explosion with a bigger radius. So the Maven Orb is very, very strong. There's a lot of really good things to use it on. Fortify helmets are very popular on champions. Explosion chest is popular on everything. And, there are some with plus gems levels as well. So they can be really, really nice. And remember, with the Maven Orb, it does work. Technically, if you had 2 tier 2 mods, it would elevate one of them to tier 1 as well. So it doesn't just work on the tier 1 mod. Now, when a mod is elevated, it should ignore it, and you would need 2 lower ones to elevate one of those. But yeah, do remember that it can elevate tier 2 mods to tier 1 mods as well, and this could actually be useful in some cases as well. So let's look at the example. This is what I used both of my Maven Orbs on. The first one failed and gave me immune to chilled ground, but on this one I had I had 35% avoid ailments, and I had burning ground. I used the Maven Orb and it elevated my avoid ailments, and now I can get up to 50% chance to avoid elemental ailments on boots. My next step now is I'm going to reroll the prefixes until I get movement speed and life, and before that I actually ideally want to remove the shitty life regen suffix here. But yeah, that was turned out really well. I only needed 2 orbs, and there are so many good things that you do want to look into on PoEDB what are the different like elevated mods. It's pretty easy to see as well. If I open up PoEDB here, we can look down and go like +1 active skill gems, here the elevated one, and you can ignore the item level. It doesn't actually matter for these. 5 to 10 quality of socketed active support gems. If we look here on the physical damage, it's cold damage recouped as life, which is supposed to be very strong. Sounds exciting. I want to try it at some point. And yeah, there's loads of good ones that you want to look into. Next up, let's look into the, for example, Conqueror Exalted Orb. So for example, here we have the Crusader Exalted Orb. Now, can't you just use, like, why use an Awakener Orb, Zizaran? Can't I just use it like this? Well, the item already has influence. So the only way to get 2 influence on something is the Awakener Orb. However, if you have an uninfluenced item, and it can't be synthesized, it can't be fractured, but it can be incursion. Incursion is fine. So they are very, very strong for that. If we look here, I have an incursion item, and I actually this would have been a great choice to use a Crusader Orb or Exalted Orb Redeemer on, because I really wanted Redeemer so that eventually I can get a Frenzy on hit. That would be really good for one of my characters later on. Something that's great about the special Exalted Orbs here is that they only exalt a augmented affix. So what I mean by that is this helmet had it had the lightning rest, it had the int, whatever prefix is, and it had an open suffix. I used a Hunter Exalted Orb, and I was lucky enough to hit the percentage int. So very, very lucky for me here. And now I have, sadly, tier 2 int, but, you know, it could have been something else. So, very lucky. Now, obviously, exalting something like the Crusader Explosion is fairly rare. You do want to check the weight between the different influence mods and make sure that you have a good chance of hitting it. But if you're just using it to get influence on something, that is a good way to do it, and then rolling it later. Maybe you have a 6th Link Vaal Regalia, and it's item level 85 or 86, and you really want to influence it. That is a good way as well. And then just remember, Awakener Orb drops from Awakener. I think you need level 6, but I'm not 100% sure. The Maven drops from Maven. I've had 2 so far. Seems to have a fairly decent drop rate. And all of the different orbs drop from their respective Conqueror. So they're worth keeping and yeah, fun to play around with. I hope this video helps. Hope you guys are having an amazing time on Ritual. Sub if you like the content. But more importantly, try to die less than I do.